He drained our entire account while I was at my mother's funeral. Left me with exactly $26 and a post-it on the fridge, "You'll survive. You always do." I stood there, no rent money, no savings, no clue where he even was. Turns out, he was in Cabo with his assistant. He took everything, my trust, my dignity, even my name on the lease. But he forgot one thing I remember: everything. And what he doesn't know is when I come back, I don't just return. I return with receipts. My name is Marissa Kane. I live in Savannah, Georgia. Or at least, I used to. Before he left me with nothing, Travis and I were married for 5 years. We weren't perfect, who is, but I believed we were solid. I ran a small candle shop on Liberty Street, right off the square. He worked in finance, said he was helping startups grow. I didn't understand the details, but I trusted him. Big mistake. He liked to joke that I was the emotional one, and he was the planner. Turns out, he planned everything. It started with a silence. No calls that day, no messages. He didn't come home after work. I assumed a late meeting. By midnight, I started to worry. By 2 a.m., I started to unravel. The next morning, I checked our joint account. 0.36. My stomach dropped. I refreshed the page. Still 0.36. I opened the drawer where we kept our documents. The safe was open, empty. Then I saw it, a yellow post-it stuck to the fridge. In his handwriting, "You'll survive. You always do." That's it. No signature, no explanation, no apology. I collapsed to the floor. That day, the rent was due. I had $26 in my personal account. The landlord didn't care about betrayal. He cared about payment. I called Travis, voicemail. I texted, nothing. Then, like a punch in the face, I opened Instagram. He posted a photo, sunset in Cabo, a glass of champagne, and in the reflection of his sunglasses, his assistant. That same girl who used to call me ma'am. He left me for her, used our money to fly first class, and I was standing in a kitchen with no power, no food, and no clue what to do next. People think heartbreak is loud. Mine was silent. I sat on the porch of that little apartment in Savannah for hours, watching the mailman walk past like it was a normal day. But for me, everything had collapsed. It's funny, when someone steals your money, they don't just take your bank balance. They take your security, your future, your peace, even your name, because I wasn't Marissa anymore. I was the woman who got left. The next week, I got the eviction notice. The week after that, the credit card companies started calling. Apparently, Travis had opened accounts in my name. Tens of thousands of dollars, spent on hotels, clothes, gifts, not for me. I thought of calling the police, but I had no proof. He'd been smart. Every charge had a paper trail, a forged signature that looked enough like mine to pass. So I cried, but only once. And then I got to work. I moved into the back of my candle shop. No hot water, no privacy. But it was mine. I stopped scrolling. I started studying. I read everything I could about debt recovery, credit law, and fraud. I called banks. I called lawyers. Most didn't care. But one woman did. Her name was Amira. She ran a small firm helping women fight back after financial abuse. She listened, she believed me, and she taught me how to dig. Turns out, Travis didn't just leave me broke. He left a trail, and one day, I was going to follow it, all the way back to him. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to build quietly, ruthlessly, because when I came back, I wasn't coming for a conversation. I was coming for everything he took. And I was going to make sure he paid it back with interest. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But for me, it was best served calculated. After Travis disappeared with everything, I didn't run after him. I didn't scream into the void. I let the silence do the heavy lifting. But inside, I was fire. The kind of fire that doesn't rage, it burns slow, controlled, patient, focused. I started with a list, not a wish list, a war map. Everything he touched, every account, every document, every mistake he left behind. Because the thing about men like Travis, they think they're too clever to leave footprints. But he wasn't that clever. He used my name for credit cards. Forgot that I kept all our emails. He forged my signature on loan documents. Forgot that my real one had a loop in the S that his version never got right. I moved into the back of my candle shop and made it my war room. By day, I poured wax and wrapped packages with trembling hands. By night, I read. Consumer Protection Law, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, debt recovery loopholes. I learned the alphabet soup of American financial law like it was a second language. FCRA, FDCPA, UDAAP. My Google history could have passed for a paralegals. And then I met Amira. She wasn't a superhero. She wasn't even a lawyer in a big fancy firm. But she was sharp, quietly dangerous. She had been through it. She recognized the hollow in my voice when I explained everything. Financial abuse is real, she told me. They weaponize your trust, and the banks. They protect the abuser until someone forces them to see. She didn't just hear me, she saw me. And with her help, I started collecting bullets for my legal arsenal. First, I filed a police report not to catch him, but to start a paper trail. Then I filed fraud reports with the 3 major credit bureaus. It wasn't enough, but it was something. And every something became a brick. Brick by brick, I built a case. One that would not only clear my name, but drag his down with it. Travis made a crucial mistake. He never actually divorced me. Legally, we were still tied, which meant his new company, half mine on paper, that assistant he ran off with. She signed on as co-founder of a tech consulting agency based in Miami. But here's the fun part. They filed the LLC using our old home address, which meant they left the door wide open. So I walked in, not literally, legally. I filed a UCC lien, froze the business credit line they opened using my stolen score. And then I played the long game. I reached out to an old friend from college, Jonas, now working as a consultant scout. Told him about a promising new firm in Miami. Said I'd help them make contact. He did. They met. They loved Travis. They offered him a shot at a merger deal. 1 problem background checks. Guess whose name came up as financial co-owner? Mine. Guess what I did? Sent a confidential letter to the acquisition team with copies of the fraud report, police filing, and a single sticky note, "You'll survive. You always do." They pulled out within 48 hours. Travis never saw it coming, but I did. Because while he was drinking champagne on boats, I was drinking cheap coffee in the back of a shop with no hot water, memorizing tax code. He had attention. I had intention. He had quick wins. I had quiet weapons. And I wasn't done yet. I sent letters to every creditor linked to the forged accounts, cited legal statutes, demanded investigations, attached handwriting samples. Some rejected me, some stalled, but a few listened. And once the first domino fell, the rest came crashing down. The IRS opened a review. Turns out Travis hadn't filed correctly in 2 years. His accounts were flagged. And then, the most poetic thing happened. He reached out, texted me, "Can we talk?" I didn't reply, because silence was his language, and I was fluent now. So I waited, and I planned, not for an argument, not for closure, but for control. Because the woman he left behind, she was gone. The one he created, she was dangerous. And soon, she was going to become his biggest debt. So I started watching the company, their website, their filings, their press releases. Every time they posted about growth or success, I screenshot it, because I knew where the money came from. And soon, I'd show others too. Amira helped me file an injunction, one that restricted them from using my personal credit history in future applications. It wasn't enough to freeze their funding, I wanted to freeze their name. So I started the process to file a lawsuit under identity theft and emotional distress. My hands shook when I signed the documents. Not from fear, from clarity. Because this wasn't just revenge anymore, like this was justice. Meanwhile, I took self-defense classes. Not because I feared Travis coming back, but because I wanted to walk into every room with a presence he never gave me permission to have. The candle shop started gaining traction too. Funny how darkness gives birth to fire. I made a new line, ashes to embers, each candle named after a lesson he taught me. Red flag. Gaslight. The exit. Customers loved it. Women whispered their own stories as they paid. I listened, and I lit each wick like a quiet prayer. I hired a college intern to help me file paperwork, rebrand the shop. She reminded me of myself, eager, kind, slightly too trusting. I told her to always read the fine print, and to never co-sign anything for a man who won't co-sign her dreams. I no longer cried over Travis. I studied him, like a map, like a case file, and with every move, I built mine 2 steps ahead. The final straw came when he posted a video, talking about his rise from failure. He said he'd been used in a past relationship, claimed his ex-wife was jealous, bitter, unstable. He never used my name, but I didn't need him to. He used my story, and now I would use his lies as fuel. I called a reporter, one who specialized in financial crime and tech scandals. I sent her the documents, the forged loans, the UCC lien, the police report, and a statement I'm not trying to ruin him. I'm just cleaning up the mess he made. The article hit 3 weeks later. Title: Startup Star or Financial Predator. His name was on the front page of local business news. The comments section exploded. Investors started pulling. Partners started calling. And just like that, his house of cards began to tremble. He texted again. "You don't have to do this." But I did. Because he left me with debt. And I wanted him to understand what real loss felt like. Not the loss of money, the loss of control, the loss of narrative, the loss of peace. I didn't just want him bankrupt in dollars, I wanted him bankrupt in certainty. So I closed my notebook, put on lipstick, lit a new candle, and waited. Because the story wasn't over. And part 3 would be the most expensive chapter of his life. It started with a glass of wine and a plan. I was sitting alone in the back of my shop, the scent of eucalyptus and cedarwood drifting through the air, when I saw it. Travis had registered a new company, a consulting firm in Miami. Fancy name, flashy website, slick branding. But what caught my attention was the address. It was the same townhouse we once shared in Savannah, the one he abandoned without a word, the one where I found that yellow sticky note. He was arrogant, careless. He thought I was gone, out of the picture, out of the game. He had no idea I was watching. He built the company using stolen credit, business cards, tax records, all tied back to my identity. But on the surface, it looked clean. And that was exactly the image he was selling. So I decided to buy in, not with money, with leverage. First, I created a new email account, a fake investor name, a LinkedIn profile with enough polish to pass scrutiny. I contacted his firm pretending to be a potential partner. They replied in minutes. A week later, we were on a video call. Travis did not recognize me. New name, new voice, different hair. The lighting hid my face. I told him I was scouting promising firms for acquisition. He ate it up, bragged about growth, projected earnings, how his firm was poised to scale. He said he was the vision, his assistant the operations. I smiled through the screen and asked for documents, financials, legal structure, equity breakdown. He sent everything, and there it was. My name on forms, on co-ownership agreements, on credit applications I never signed. He was using my name to secure loans, to gain funding, to appear legitimate, all while pretending I did not exist. I had what I needed. But I was not done. I contacted a merger consultant, an old college connection named Jonas, who now worked with tech startups. I pitched Travis's company like it was gold, told him I knew the founders, said I could make an introduction. Jonas looked into it. The firm seemed promising. He scheduled a call. Travis was ecstatic. They met, talked numbers, talked growth. Jonas offered a soft commitment, but he needed to run a full background check, which meant all eyes would be on the legal documents. That is when I made my move. I sent Jonas a private message, told him to look closer at the signatures, attached side-by-side comparisons. One real, one forged. Then I sent him the police report I filed, the fraud complaints, the credit bureau letters. No drama, just facts. Jonas called me the next day. He said they were pulling out of the deal. He sounded shaken. I told him not to worry. He had just dodged a very expensive bullet. Meanwhile, I filed a UCC lien against the business. Since Travis used my identity to start it, I had legal standing. I tied up their assets, flagged their accounts, and froze their ability to borrow under the business name. It caused a ripple effect. Vendors started demanding upfront payments. Partners withdrew. One even threatened legal action. Travis was scrambling, and I was silent. But that was only phase 1. Phase 2 was more public. I pitched a story to a journalist who covered financial misconduct. I gave her the entire paper trail, anonymous sources, hard proof, records no one could deny. She did not need much convincing. The article dropped on a Thursday morning, headlined "The Startup Built on Stolen Credit." It hit every inbox in his network. The story was picked up by local news, then by tech blogs. He tried to deny it, tried to spin it. But the document spoke louder than any press release. And his silence, once his greatest weapon, became a liability. The assistant she went dark. Investors vanished. I did not clap, I did not cheer. I lit a candle and kept moving. Because revenge is not about applause. It is about restoration. I reclaimed my credit, filed formal affidavits clearing my name. I used his own arrogance to restore what he took. But I was not finished. The final piece was personal. I scheduled a face-to-face meeting, requested it through his assistant before she vanished. Said I was a former partner looking to close the loop. He agreed. Probably thought he could charm me, or manipulate me. He arrived 10 minutes late. Wore the same smug grin I remembered. He sat across from me in that sterile hotel lobby and tried to act surprised. I did not let him speak. I slid a folder across the table. Inside copies of every document he signed in my name. Highlighted, annotated, notarized. He opened it, flipped through the pages. His face changed. Panic has a sound. It is quiet, tight in the throat, heavy in the breath. He looked up, eyes full of excuses. I stood. I leaned close. And I whispered, "I am not here for revenge. I am here for reimbursement." Then I walked out. And for the first time in years, I did not look back. When I stepped outside that hotel, the wind felt different. It wasn't colder. It wasn't warmer. It just felt clean. Like the weight I carried for years had finally dissolved into air. I walked down the street. No destination, just movement. Each step was mine again. Each breath. When I got back to Savannah, I found a letter in the mailbox of my candle shop. No name, no return address. Inside was a check, no note, no explanation, but the signature was his. It wasn't the full amount, not even close, but I didn't cash it. I framed it, put it on the wall behind my counter, because that was not repayment, it was surrender. I wanted every woman who walked into my shop to see it, to know that you could be left in ruins and still rise with elegance. You could burn and still build. I started hosting workshops, how to protect your credit, how to read contracts, how to spot red flags. They came in quietly, left with their heads high. Some cried, some didn't say a word, but every single one of them walked out a little taller. Because power is not always loud. Sometimes it's the soft hand that signs the right form. Sometimes it's the silence that follows a lie exposed. Travis eventually vanished from the headlines. The company dissolved quietly. No lawsuits, no charges. Just shame that moved like smoke through his reputation. I never saw him again. I never needed to. Because I did not destroy him. He did that himself. All I did was shine a light. And sometimes, when the light is bright enough, the shadows have nowhere left to hide. That was the gift he gave me. Unintentionally. Unforgivably. He stripped everything away and revealed the woman I had always been underneath. So I renamed the shop, rebranded everything, Phoenix Flame, because I was not the ashes. I was the fire that rose from them. Now, I no longer light candles to mourn. I light them to remind that even when someone leaves you with nothing, you still have the power to rebuild it all. And sometimes, if you are patient enough, you can leave them with something worse than nothing. You can leave them with debt. and the memory of the woman who made them pay for it in full. Some people seek closure in conversations. I sought it in courtrooms. The next step in my journey was not revenge, it was reclamation. I wanted my name back, my record, my future. Travis had done more than leave me in ruins. He had tried to bury me in legal quicksand. Every loan he forged in my name became a chain, every false signature a silent sentence. But I was not going to live in the prison he built. With the help of Amira and a local pro bono legal clinic, I began the process of filing a formal civil suit. It was not simple, it was not fast, but it was necessary. We compiled every document, bank statements, screenshots, text logs, recorded calls with credit agencies. Each page told a story, not of rage, but of restoration. I filed a motion to declare the debts invalid under identity theft statutes. We submitted handwriting analysis from a licensed expert. They compared his forged signatures to my real ones. The results were undeniable. The judge granted an initial hearing. That moment was quiet, but inside I was standing taller than I had in years. At the hearing, Travis did not show up. His attorney claimed he was unavailable, that he was not aware of the full situation, but the evidence spoke louder than excuses. I testified. My hands trembled at first, but my voice was steady. I told the court what had happened, step by step, loan by loan, silence by silence. When I was done, the judge nodded. He called the situation disturbing. He ordered a full review of all contested debts and allowed us to proceed with discovery. That one word meant everything: proceed. Because now I was no longer cleaning up his mess, I was holding him accountable. We subpoenaed financial institutions, tracked down notaries, uncovered documents with timestamps that proved I could not have been present to sign. I was out of state for some of them, and we had receipts to prove it. One bank folded immediately. They cleared the debt, apologized in writing. Another launched an internal investigation. 2 more required formal mediation. Every week, a new piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Every victory felt small, but together they formed a map leading to freedom. During this time, I kept my shop running, kept teaching women how to protect their credit. I was living proof that even when you are buried, you can rise and rebuild. Then came the deposition request. Travis was formally summoned to provide testimony. This time he could not hide. He walked into the room with a forced confidence, dressed like success. But his eyes told a different story. I sat across from him, no longer small, no longer shaking. I was not the woman he left. I was the woman he underestimated. He tried to charm his way through the questions, pretended not to remember, blamed clerical errors, but the documents pinned him down. Each lie exposed another crack in his version. By the end of it, his lawyer looked exhausted. Mine looked resolute. Outside the room, Travis tried to speak to me, tried to offer something off the record, but I walked past him because everything I needed to say was already in motion. 2 months later, we reached a settlement. Most of the fraudulent debt was cleared. His company was ordered to pay damages. Not millions, but enough to fund an expansion of my shop, enough to fund scholarships for young women, enough to start again. More than the money, it was the recognition, a court document that said, "She was right, she was wronged, she is restored." That piece of paper meant more than any apology. In the months that followed, I kept receiving messages from strangers, from women in similar storms. They shared their stories. They asked how I kept going. I told them the truth. You do not have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to be steady. Today, I keep that court order framed in my office, right next to the check he once sent. Both reminders that what was meant to break me built me instead. And every morning, when I open Phoenix Flame, I light a candle for every woman still clawing her way back, and I whisper into the flame, "You are not alone, you are not done, and you are never powerless." The victory in court was not just legal, it was spiritual. It rewrote the narrative he tried to carve into my life. No longer a victim, I was a witness to my own resilience. I took a weekend off for the first time in years, drove out to Tybee Island, stood barefoot on the sand with the wind pushing against me. And for once, I did not think about the past. I thought about the ocean, about how it keeps moving forward no matter what crashes into it. That is what I wanted to be: steady, expansive, unstoppable. When I came back to the shop, I launched a new collection. Each candle named after a phase of my healing. Affidavit motion granted restoration. They sold out in a week. Not because people loved the wax or the jars, but because they felt the story inside the flame. And soon, Phoenix Flame became more than a shop. It became a space, a refuge. A place where women sat together after hours and shared the truths no one else wanted to hear. About stolen accounts, stolen time, stolen hope, and how each of us found a way to keep breathing, keep building. I partnered with Amira to host free financial literacy nights. We taught how to read fine print, how to detect manipulation hidden in kindness, how to report and rebuild. Sometimes we had 3 people, sometimes we had 30. But every session mattered. Every woman who walked through those doors mattered. Travis became a ghost. Occasionally, I would hear whispers about him. He moved, he changed industries. He tried again, but I did not chase the updates. Because my life was no longer defined by what he did. It was defined by what I chose to become. There is a moment in healing no one talks about when you stop needing them to hurt because you have found peace. And peace is louder than revenge. I found mine in paperwork, in community, in the quiet flicker of a candle lighting up a dark room. And as I stood there watching my business grow, I finally understood something. He thought leaving me with nothing would make me crumble. But nothing is where creation begins. From nothing comes fire, and from fire comes rebirth. There is a silence that comes after war, not the kind that feels empty, but the kind that feels earned. My war was over, not with an explosion, not with applause, but with stillness. I had taken back my name, my future, my dignity. And yet there was one more thing left, one final act to close the chapter. Not for him, for me. He left me with nothing, so I left him with something worse. Debt and a legacy of exposure. But beyond revenge, I wanted purpose. I wanted this story to build something. Not just for me, but for others. So I began laying the foundation for something larger than Phoenix Flame. A nonprofit, a support network. For women who had been financially betrayed, not just stolen from, but strategically erased. It started with a single room behind the shop, then it grew. We called it Second Ledger because every woman deserves a second chance at building her financial record, her worth, her story. The first workshop we hosted had 6 women. They came in with folders and fears, bank statements they could not understand, bills they never opened, shame they did not deserve. We taught them how to file reports, how to challenge accounts, how to speak to banks without flinching, how to speak to themselves without shame. One woman cried for 10 minutes before saying a single word. Another said she had not opened her mailbox in 4 months. They were not broken. They had been told to break, and they chose not to. That night, after everyone left, I sat on the floor and looked around the empty room. It smelled like coffee and lavender. The air felt heavy with stories, but for the first time it did not feel hopeless. I thought about all the rooms Travis once owned, all the spaces he filled with his ego, his noise, and how none of those rooms were standing anymore. But this room was, and it was built on truth, on pain that had been shaped into purpose. Months passed, the nonprofit gained attention, local media picked it up, then a national outlet did a piece. I stood in front of a camera and told my story. Not the drama, but the aftermath. The building. The rising. They asked me if I forgave him. I said I did not spend time deciding, because forgiveness was not the goal. Freedom was. And I was free. One morning I received a letter, no return address. Inside was a printout, an article Travis had filed for bankruptcy. The company dissolved, assets frozen, credit destroyed. I read it in silence, then folded it once, placed it in the back of a drawer, and never opened it again. Because some victories do not need celebration, they just need closure. In the years that followed, Phoenix Flame became a brand. Second Ledger became a movement. I spoke at conferences. Signed copies of my book taught high school seniors how to read a credit report. Looked women in the eye and reminded them that debt does not define them, and neither do the men who tried to bury them in it. Sometimes I walk alone at sunset down Liberty Street, past the place where it all started. The apartment I lost, the porch I cried on, the life that burned to ash. And I remember not with sadness, but with clarity, because it was never about the loss, it was about what came after. He left me with nothing, and I rebuilt everything and more. And if I could speak to the version of me who stood in that kitchen, Holding a yellow, sticky note with tears in her eyes, I would say this: "You are not finished. You are not defeated. You are just beginning. And one day, you will stand in a room filled with women who once believed they were powerless, and you will see yourself in them. Not the broken parts, but the rebuilding, the brilliance, the fire that never went out. You will light a candle, and instead of mourning what was taken, you will illuminate what you reclaimed. Because some debts are never repaid in dollars. They are repaid in resilience, in rebuilding, in becoming. And that will always be enough. The road from silence to strength is not a straight line. It curves, it breaks, it disappears under your feet, and forces you to build it brick by brick as you walk. But that is the difference between people like him and people like us. He built his life by borrowing. We build ours by becoming. I remember when I used to flinch at the sound of his name. Now it means nothing, just a chapter, not the whole book. The women who came to Second Ledger changed my life more than any courtroom ruling ever could. There was Grace, a teacher who co-signed a loan and ended up with garnished wages. There was Lillian, who discovered her husband drained their daughter's college fund while smiling through Christmas dinner. There was Keisha, a small business owner like me who had been pushed out of her own company by a man who said she was just the face. They brought their pain to our circle, but they left with power. I watched them reclaim bank accounts, call creditors without shaking, negotiate terms like executives. Some of them even started their own shops, selling candles, soap, handmade jewelry. Every product born from a life that refused to end at someone else's betrayal. We even started a grant program, funded entirely by profits from Phoenix Flame. Each year, we chose 5 women to receive seed money and mentorship. We called it the Ember Grant, because sometimes all it takes is a spark. One of those women went on to speak at a national summit. She opened her speech by saying, "They tried to erase me from the ledger, but I just started writing in ink." When I heard those words, I knew my story no longer belonged to me. It belonged to every woman who had ever been told she was too soft to survive, too trusting to fight back, too broken to rise. They were wrong. We are the storm they never see coming. I still light one candle every night, not for him, not for what was lost, but for every woman still walking through fire, every woman who thinks she is alone, every woman who has not yet found her second ledger. And I whisper the words I once needed to hear. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are the one who gets to end the story. And this is not the end. This is the beginning of everything you were meant to become.